If you want to make a great impact on your readers, whether you're talking about a book or a blog or something else that you're writing, you want to consider using images inside of your works. But the question is, how can you use images without getting sued? We're going to talk about that today. Thanks for checking out this video by Writing Done Right. I'm Tom Roski, an author and a technical consultant, and also, relevant today, a web developer, particularly in the field of authors. If you need a website, you can go ahead and reach out to me, sales@westernmtnweb.com. They'll be on the screen right there. If you need an author website, reach out to me and I'd be glad to talk to you about what we can do for you. But today, this is a story that starts with a cautionary tale that was presented to me by one of my clients. And she had previously been running a blog on the Wix platform and wasn't particularly happy with it. And but going back and having an archive going back a number of years, she had received an email from a company saying, "You're using one of our images without a license with a bill of thousands of dollars." And so she reached out to me knowing that I had experience with websites and things like that and asked what my thoughts are. And I said, well, there's a few different things in here. Number one is there are a lot of scammers out there trying to scare people into fake lawsuits, but there also are companies that are going around and looking and scraping the internet for legitimate uses of unlicensed images. And so it is that case, you don't know which one you're in. Sometimes you can spot it, sometimes you can't. What I ultimately told her initially is if you've not clicked on anything in that email, do not click any of the links in the email. Even if it's legitimate, what those emails are doing, they'll provide you a link, this is where the link is, then they are actually gathering evidence that you saw and clicked that email. And so you don't want to give them any other information. In this particular case, she ended up hiring a lawyer, and the end of it was it cost her several $1,000s to clear the situation up. You don't want to be involved in that particular circumstance. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about images and licenses for books and blogs and things like that. We want to talk about different types of image licensing out there and the types of things that you want to do. The reality is, though, most people don't even think about these things, and you're writing an article and you go, oh, I'd like to throw a picture in here, and you go onto a search engine like Google or something like that, and then you type in something, image search, and you're like, oh, I like that one, and you save it and you put it to your blog. Well, you can't do that. Those images most likely are going to be copyrighted. You can see them on the internet, but to actually use them in your blog post, or even worse, in your book, is going to result in a copyright claim. Now, as I said, there are several scammers out there as well, and so you really have to use a little bit of discernment, and if you receive such things, it would not hurt to run it by an attorney. And so what we want to talk about here is looking at these types of cases. So let's go ahead and chat about sourcing images. Now, you can source images in a number of different ways. If you like outdoor scenery stuff and you happen to travel a lot like I do, and that's why we haven't done a lot of videos on this channel in the last few years. I've been doing a lot of travel. Well, I'm still doing travel. You're going to see these videos are going to be cropping up from different sceneries all over the place. Right now, I'm escaping the cold snap in Florida, and we are in this beautiful spot. But as I'm traveling around, I will take lots of photographs everywhere. If you want nature photos, I got nature photos. I got mountains and streams and deserts and lakes and snowy fields and all sorts of neat stuff. So you can always source your own images. And if somebody else comes by and is like, that's my image, you're like, yeah, I snapped it with my own camera. And especially if you're saving the metadata for your photos, you can shut them up in a really quick hot second. Not everybody has that, and sometimes, just the photographs you take may not represent what you're doing. Of course, the other thing I didn't even mention in here as I was putting my notes together, there are AI systems that can generate images. Check the licensing on those, what they're doing. I am personally not a huge advocate in utilizing AI, so I didn't look into all those different options, but there may very well be AI options out there for you to be doing image sourcing as well. The next is there are places where you can get freely sourced images, and these would all fall under public domain licenses. We'll get into licenses in a moment. But things like Pixabay is a popular one. The other ones I have used is Pexels and free-images.com. Any of these sites, you do want to look at those images, you maybe even be extra cautious, throw them into a reverse image search, see if they're showing up anywhere in a copyrighted form. But for the most part, the images on those 3 sites, you can freely use. They're all licensed as public domain, and that means that there is no restriction on their use any way, shape, or form. And so the last way, of course, is to pay for the images. And there's a few different licenses out there when you can pay for images. Typically, you want to buy the royalty-free images. These are your companies like Shutterstock, Storyblocks, and other companies like this. You go in and you pay them either a monthly fee or a pay per image, and then you'll get a certain number of downloads in any given month. And then any images that you download under that subscription, you save your receipts for those. Those will give you a license to use those images within the confines of those, as long as you have those images and the receipt that you can prove that you actually have the license to use them. So paying for images is great because the free images you find on Pexels and Pixabay, many of them are really good, and I typically use those when I'm doing blog posts for clients and things like that. But sometimes you just can't find what you're looking for. The Shutterstock, Storyblock, these ones, they have much better, more robust search options, and you can typically find better quality photos on those services. So it might be worth paying a little extra money to get better sourced images in that circumstance. And so those are the ways you can get your images, those 4 ways. Take your own photos, free services, AI systems, or you can pay for them. The last thing we want to talk about is knowing what your image licenses are. So a public domain image license, means that it's just out there in the world. It's completely free. You can use it in commercial. You can use it on a non-commercial. You can do with that image effectively anything you want to do with that image. This is where in like video areas like Disney just recently had a version, not all versions, a version of Mickey Mouse released into the public domain, so you can use that particular version, but it's got to be the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse. Do not use any other Mickey Mouse in anything. It is still under very strict and very savage copyright enforcement. But public domain in United States, most works reach public domain usually 20 years after the expiry of the original author of the domain, when we're talking about like books and things like that. And there's a few exceptions here and there, but just be aware of it. Any image or information coming out of a government is, according to United States law, is public domain. So images of presidents or things like that generally fall under public domain. Things like that you might find. Now, another one that you can generally use free of charge is your Creative Commons license, but these ones usually come with some interesting restrictions. So Creative Commons, there's 0 through 4, just based on different versions of the licensing. So you're going to want to look at the image and figure out where what it falls under. Typically, the Creative Commons can be used in non-commercial ways as long as you attribute the author. Now, can you use that as a thumbnail of a monetized video? It's questionable. If you're using anything with a Creative Commons license, always give credit back to the author. We'll talk about credit here in a minute. Actually, let's talk about credit now, because where do you find this information? And with Creative Commons ones, I typically find these on like Wikipedia pages. You click through Wikipedia, and every single image on Wikipedia will have license information. You want to click in on the image, and then you'll land on a Wikipedia page with the image, and below it, it will have license. It will tell you if it's at public domain, it'll say Creative Commons, or it might tell you some other form of license. On Wikipedia, they're either going to be Creative Commons or they're going to be public domain for the most part. And then the advantage of sourcing them out of Wikipedia is that they will have exactly how you quote the author. So in the rare times I've had to use a Creative Commons for a thumbnail, I'll just go to Wikipedia, copy that text and I will paste that on my thumbnail in small text, but I will also paste that in the video description if I'm doing it for a video. And so you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you have a really good grasp of what that particular license is. Now, the next type of license you're going to find is called a royalty-free. This means that you pay for it one time and then you can use it as much as you want within the confines of that license. Now, these are what you find on Storyblock, Shutterstock, and other services like that, where you're purchasing a license to download a certain number of images, or you might be paying per image. Again, they're going to tell you what the license is on that particular image, and you do want to save copies of those receipts in the event you do not keep those accounts long term. So for example, I have had a Storyblocks account in the past, but I found it just wasn't as useful for the workflow that I do, so I dropped the account, but I saved the receipts for all of the videos I've downloaded, so nobody can come back later and say, oh, you're using an account. Oh no, I had Storyblocks during the period of time I did that video. This is the actual receipt for it. Make sure you're doing that. Now, the last one is called Rights Managed. Now, there's a few other ones in addition to these, but these are the most common you'll find. A Rights Managed is going to be a license that allows you to use it for certain times, but you can also get and buy out exclusivity. I've seen this also being used in like WordPress themes on Envato Market, where you might go over there and buy a theme for $100, and every year you gotta throw an extra $100 at it to get the security updates. But some of those themes have buyout options. You can pay like $1,000 and they will delist the theme from the site, allowing you exclusive use for it. Of course, you have to allow everybody who previously downloaded it to continue using it as well. Images under Rights Managed also are a thing. This allows you to purchase a work and pay more for it to have exclusivity, so that you are the only one with the right to do that. Now, typically in that, the original photographer maintains the original ownership, but you have the exclusive license to utilize that image in the circumstance. Things like commissioned works would fall under this, or other works that maybe there's something on Shutterstock. I think Shutterstock might actually have an option for exclusivity. You can say, I really like this image and I don't want anybody else from this time forward to use this. You can pay extra money to delist that image, and now you have the exclusive rights outside of everybody who's already downloaded it, but they will then delist the image. So that is your Rights Managed. Once again, you can see what those licenses are looking at it. Pretty much any site that serves images, whether it's Pixabay or the paid services like Shutterstock or iStock Photo or things like that, they will have a page on licenses to teach you about it. It is just critically important. Do not write a book or a blog and just grab an image somewhere from an online internet search and just paste that image in there. You want to make sure you're following all the rules and the laws. Now, it's more dangerous, in my opinion, if you're a small author, to have an unlicensed image on a blog than in a book. A big name author, you want to avoid it everywhere. Thousands and thousands of people will be looking at your book. Somebody's going to spot if you have an unlicensed image. Typically, if you're working with a publisher, they're going to manage all that kind of stuff. But in this era of self-publishing, you need to make sure you cross all those T's and dot all those I's to make sure you're not violating any of those laws. But the reason blogs, even for small authors, is so important is because tools are out there which will scan the internet looking for these images, and when they find images that may not be theirs, it may just look like theirs, they will issue a license claim against it, whether or not it's actually theirs. And they're just, in many ways, it's a very scummy industry. In many ways, they're just trusting on your fear and ignorance to just pay them a bunch of money. In some instances, you might have been doing wrong. In some instances, you would be very successful in fighting back against them. Most of these companies, if you put up the littlest bit of resistance, they're going to pass on by no matter what. But if anybody ever comes in and says, you're using our image, unless that is an image you personally took, I would, in the abundance of caution, take it down anyway. Because even if it doesn't turn anything then, it could turn into something then, because a bot has already found it. So there's information and a warning about using images in your books and in your blogs. Once again, if you are looking for an author website, you can reach out to me. Email there is on the screen there, sales@westernmtnweb.com, if you want to hear about what we have specifically for authors. And when you email there, make sure you know you're an author looking for a website, because I have special deals and special plans for authors outside the scope of the regular custom work that I do. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope that these tips have helped you to get your writing done.